Hey, it always catches me by surprise. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Punch Up Pod with Lila and Pat. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing today? Pat, how you doing?
Well, it's hump day and I'm not working, so there's got to be a joke in
Okay.
there somehow. Like I don't know what, but
It always leads me back to prom night. Every one of
prom night
those jokes.
jokes are good. Sexual
Every
innuendo is our
and
jam.
underage girls. It's like my sweet spot right there. No, awful.
That is
I'm
not
canceled.
mine.
It's not. No, I know. I'm trying to incriminate
Clearly,
you. I'm getting you canceled right now.
yeah.
What are you
Well, guilt
drinking?
by association. I'm already in trouble.
Yeah. It's my own
I'm
private
bringing
X factor.
big sexy, bring sexy back.
I
Which,
mean, I already did the
yeah,
joke, so I'm just gonna
I
let you go with it. Yeah.
I made the mistake of only buying two 4 packs, and one is this one for the show, but the other one I have is a quad IPA, which is like 15% alcohol, which even for my experienced liver is a bit of a stretch to have a few for a show. So
Kill your liver, as they say. Well, that is my alcohol by volume content for the wine I drink when I'm not drinking my vodka. So I'm happy to
fair.
have you on board with the 14.5%. How was your weekend? What's going on?
Yeah, you always ask that, and my life is so sad that this is like the most stressful part of the show. I'm like, what what can I come up with that was entertaining this week? And I almost have nothing. I mean, I
Yeah,
saw I had a weird week where I saw almost a bunch of car wrecks, and then
yeah.
almost got an interview myself, and then right when I came back that from that day of work, I watched a tow truck drive off and leave the car in the street in front of me because it didn't chain it up. And I was
Oh
like,
my
this is a good
God.
sign to just stay indoors and respect the COVID because the world is out to get me right now. So,
What's his name? David Leonard from the New York Times, who's a big advocate of the urgency of normal. He's blaming car accidents on the fact that we've had COVID restrictions, not COVID, but COVID restrictions. So maybe that's what's happening there.
wow. Makes sense. Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Um, how was my weekend, you
Oh, I was going to. These are the these are the
ask?
things that socialized people do, but I'm
Well,
not very well socialized these days. So go
I
on.
would just like to ask the Biden administration. I woke up this morning not feeling great, which I haven't had a cold in 2 years because we socially distance and quarantine and mask all the time. And I used one of my 4 tests for our family of 4 to test myself because I thought that would be the responsible thing to do. I don't have COVID, but I've wasted one of our tests. So let's just hope
And
this is the end.
but you also don't know that you don't have COVID from just one
Yeah.
test. So
No, you're right.
there's that.
Yeah, you're
Well,
right.
well, if my 4 tests ever arrive, I'll ship them down to you
Thank you. I
because I
appreciate
ordered
it.
them on day one and they haven't arrived yet. So
That's amazing.
there's that.
Maybe they went to somewhere else in your building. All right. Well, we are so excited. Both of our favorite accounts, and judging from his followers, all of yours as well, is with us today. We have Weston from Waiting on Biden. Let's add him to the stream right now. Hey, Weston, welcome. We're so happy to have you on board today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You're a daily check-in for so many of us. I want to hear, well, we want to start with all the stuff. For some reason, I've got weird things happening on my side screen there. So we wanted to just kind of get to know the guy behind one of our favorite accounts. What made you start this account, and how hard is it for you to come up with material every day?
Depressingly easy, actually, to that last point.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the account, it came along very naturally. It was literally my lunch break on the inauguration day. You know, I was eating a sandwich, sitting at a kitchen table, working from home from a family's house, and just hearing the speech in the other room. I just was really disappointed and frustrated of hearing all of the progress we'd made with the protests, and all the ripe for opportunity, how ripe for opportunity that moment was for real change with Medicare for all due to the pandemic, police defunding, etc., coming off of all of that. It just, I felt really just disheartened. I couldn't think of anyone who was less suited to that moment in history. And so, yeah, I had an anti-Trump kind of joke account, and I switched everything over to Biden on day one. And I just tweeted today's day one that he hasn't canceled student debt. Today's day one that he hasn't done Medicare for all, or gotten the kids out of cages, or legalized weed. All these things, whether they promised him or not, I wanted to kind of keep just a bit of a running tally, just to keep people engaged and say, these are things that we shouldn't lose sight of just because the orange man is gone, right? I mean, these are still problems that still exist, and in some cases have gotten much worse. So it came from a very natural place.
You're a diehard Republican, I hear, is what, you're a Republican GOP operative paid by, I mean, if not Putin, at least the RNC.
It does change. One day I'm Russian, one day I'm Chinese, one day I'm Republican, one day I'm British, and one day I'm just from Brooklyn, which apparently is the only one that's true, but apparently is also still a bad thing. But yeah, it's been very amusing. I guess ultimately the kind of purpose of it was to keep track of things that other people aren't keeping track of. I mean, PolitiFact currently says 0 broken promises. Washington Post shut down their fact-checking database 100 days in. There's just no urgency or even will to hold Biden accountable. And it's also kind of a joke too, right? Because none of us are going to push Biden left to a satisfactory level, right? There's no holding Biden accountable in that sense where, yes, we can push him on sending us tests, which mine did finally arrive yesterday, 399 days into the Biden administration, I finally got tests. So there's small concessions that we can eke out if we push hard enough. But really, it's just making sure that people keep that same energy that we had before. Just because the color changed of the party in charge doesn't really mean a whole lot for the folks that are in cages or the folks that are struggling to make ends meet. So,
and pushing him left was never going to happen. But holding him to his semi-left center promises is a whole nother game. And I think that's where your account comes in really strongly. Is like, you point out the things he ran on, the things he said he was going to do, and the things that he hasn't done that are clearly within his power.
Right. I mean, like, obviously, we'd all love to push him left. Whether or not that can happen, the next best thing we can do is at least show people the things that he should be getting pushed left on, but is not, right? And I think that that's something that it's funny. Half the time I feel like I'm preaching to the choir and basically just giving them material to send to their family or their friends, and then half the time, if I'm getting a lot of hate tweets, I feel like it is getting through to some people, and whether or not it's actually changing minds, I suppose I don't necessarily know. But before I ran this account, I wrote a couple articles during the primaries, and it was really, really interesting because you could actually search the URL for these pieces and see thousands of people sharing it and saying, I was going to vote for Pete or Kamala or whoever, and then I read this about them and it opened my eyes, and now I'm no longer supporting them. And that was really inspiring to think that, however bleak it gets, right, we're one voice in a sea of a million people. Like, if you talk to people about what's going on and you listen to what concerns they have and what matters to them, and you have an open dialogue with them, you can change minds. There are people in my family who are Republicans their entire life, and they donated to Bernie because I had an honest conversation with them, and that's not always going to happen. But it's the least we can do to try sometimes, if it's safe.
It feels like the effort's twofold, right? It's like, of course, you can't push him left, because if we could, he wouldn't have been able to become president, right? Like, they crushed the guy who was left because they weren't going to let him go left, or they weren't going to let us go left, or our movement continue in that same way. So yes, it's holding Biden to account, but also, and this is where I think a lot of people on the left have some friction with each other sometimes. Is like, what's the best harm reduction? Is it to have Biden there, who has some sort of weird patina of empathy, although I don't see it, but like, that's how he's written about. And then the vocal advocates, many of them sort of subsided once Trump was out. And certainly the mainstream media doesn't really hold him to account unless he's, withdrawing from Afghanistan. And so it is just reminding people of what we thought you were pretending your ideology, not you, they were pretending their ideology was when it was being done by Trump. And what I find in my own personal life is people do not like to be reminded that that's what they were pretending their ideology was when Trump was president. They want to just think that everything's back to normal and it's much better now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it makes sense. It's a self-defense mechanism, right? We're all fucking exhausted from the
Yeah.
pandemic and World War III and any number of things that are going on. And so
Yeah.
I totally understand why some people want to check out. And when people, sometimes folks say, I sleep so much easier now that Trump's gone, right? And it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're wrong to feel that way.
Right.
But at the same time, we always have these conversations about privilege and how does that
Yeah.
manifest itself in what you do. I mean, a lot of the times it's just virtue signaling, especially if you're to use your name, using it to punch down, right? And so folks
Right.
saying like, if you criticize Democrats, you're privileged because you think that you're going to be fine if a Democrat doesn't get elected. But
Right.
ultimately, one of the motivations for me running this account is, you're privileged if Biden is good enough for you, because like I said,
Yeah.
the migrants in cages, going up 50% or doubling or whatever it is now,
Yeah.
Biden's not good enough for them. Biden's not good
Yeah.
enough for the people who have no health care. And these are the reasons why we should all still be vocal about that. And that's, again, that's just kind of the motivation there.
And I
Well,
always go back to it, even if you think what we're doing isn't useful as far as forcing change, think of how bad things would be if they were unchecked entirely by the left, because the media doesn't cover any of this stuff. So,
yeah.
Even if we're not directly responsible for, collectively changing America's mindset on how they should look at the Democratic Party, we're holding them to account a little bit. Like, we only
Yeah.
got these tests because we complained,
Right.
and it actually got some media attention. So, without some sort of criticism and microscope from the media, things would be a lot worse than they are now.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, we sometimes people will insult one another and say like, oh, I can tell you didn't pay attention to politics till 2016, that sort of thing, right? But I'm 26, so my first political
Same.
memories were,
Same.
yeah, I figured as much, right? It's but so I grew up, I remember when Obama was inaugurated. I remember sitting in the school cafeteria watching on a grainy TV and giving my friend all the money that I had, who was going to DC, to bring me back a T-shirt with Obama's face on it, and just being like giddy and elated. I mean, I grew up in the deep rural South Carolina. It's funny that people slander me for living in Brooklyn, because the first time I ever saw New York was watching 9/11 on a TV in a trailer in a field in a town of 553 people in South Carolina. And the high school I went to is the high school Lindsey Graham went to. And so, when people say like, yeah, so people are like, oh, you don't know what it's like in a red state, or, you're
Yeah.
probably a trust-fund kid. It's hilarious because,
Yeah.
like you said, talking about these things is what's important. And I think you look at how popular progressive policies are. There's a reason why Biden was nominated on a message of electability, because they knew they didn't have the message of popularity. And I think the establishment survives on convincing us that what we want isn't popular and keeping us isolated from each other. When really, the vast majority of people, we all want better lives. And, like I said, in South Carolina, there's so many people who would never, ever admit to voting blue. Right. But if someone like Bernie was the nominee who was going to help them put food on the table and get their medication, at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to go into that booth and they're going to vote for who betters their life, even if they never admit it. And I think that the sooner we run somebody who can tap into that potential, maybe they're not going to flip South Carolina, but they're going to flip a lot of other people. And, that's something that I truly believe, because I've seen it.
So how do you feel? And I don't know how much you're in the weeds on like the fights on Twitter about, the Democratic Party is where progressives go to die. I'm never giving money again. I mean, I do think there's been a bit of like, I had a running Act Blue account for probably 10 to 15 different people at a time for the last, well, not once Bernie dropped out, I was sort of done, but like for about 4 years, and I just got so deflated. And I think I'm probably not the only one. How do you feel? Like in your circles, what do you think about that? What, like, is it the electing more progressives, the outside actions? Like, what is your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think one of the things that plagues all discourse is people always feeling like they have to have everything figured out, right? I don't work in politics. I don't know if the answer is changing the Democratic Party or going third party, because honestly, both seem really fucking bleak a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of people on both sides mean well and really believe what they want. And I'll be the first to say I don't know. I'd be happy for either of them to work. I would be the first to sign up this, to do. And so I've volunteered and donated to Democrats. I've volunteered and donated to third party candidates. I just try to do the best I can do in any situation that I'm presented with. And that's not to give a cop-out answer, but it's
a
tough,
nice answer.
It really is tough. And like I said, I try to be as engaged as I can, but I'm just some regular guy. Like I don't have a political science degree. I'm just angry and OCD and collect a lot of screenshots at the end of the day.
I love it.
So
that degree would not help you at all be more informed.
Probably not. But yeah, no, I sympathize with people who feel very strongly about both of those things. And I think ultimately, I try to stay out of a lot of the leftist infighting. And I think, healthy debate on strategy is great, is welcome. And I think that the more that we discuss the best tactics to use, hopefully the better those tactics get. And that's obviously separate from personal attacks and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I'd love to know the answer to that question. If you find out, please.
I know.
So I think this is why we and a lot of people on Twitter appreciate you, because I land in that same opinion. I don't have the answer on that. Third parties are so far pretty awful electorally on the national level. I mean, trying to see a pathway there, it just doesn't really exist. But then at the same time, the Democratic Party is where policy goes to die. So I've always been sort of a mix of inside outside, and where people land on that doesn't make them my enemy, because this is strategy. This is not like we have the same goals ultimately. And I don't think any of us have an answer, because there really isn't an answer other than, I think we would all be in favor of a general strike and something like that. But how close are we to something like that happening? It's we don't know.
One thing I think about the third party idea is that even if they don't have if they really don't have a path electorally in any given election, they can still really affect change by pulling or forcing some shift, in the Democratic Party or in the candidate, just for having to respond to it. Now, of course, Biden did some of that, and then he gets in office and doesn't do anything that he said he was going to do, the new FDR. But I do think it opens up the discussion a little more. But yeah, it's pretty bleak.
I mean, I've never lived in a state where my vote has ever mattered. I went from solid red South Carolina to solid blue Illinois to solid blue New York, right? So I think to me, my personal view is a hybrid situation where, the articles I wrote and this account that I run, I want people to be more engaged in the primary. I think that the chance to change things with the Democratic Party is in the primary process, not after someone's gotten elected. Then you've lost all your leverage. But at the same time, if the nominee is bad, then I'm going to vote third party to get them to 5% and get them a higher chance of government funding, and to increase their platform, and to send a message and say, look, if you run a shitty candidate, you're going to get fewer votes, right? And so I think that there's certainly a way of kind of melding those two strategies. And so I don't necessarily think it's always productive to go all one or the other. But again, I'm still learning and reading about this sort of thing as well. And as long as we all come together at the right moment, the amount of, it was so funny. People said that Bernie couldn't build a coalition. He built a coalition of the left. I mean, everyone fucking hates each other. It's the most impressive coalition you could build. But, he had the most minority voters, people of color, he had the most women, he had the most everything. I mean, he had the most donors from the military, right? I mean, what candidate has the most donors of active military and the highest LGBT contingent, right? It's like
breaking my heart all over again.
Right. So the amount of people that he was able to pull together, I do fear that we've maybe missed the boat on that sort of kind of coming together. But I hope that whichever party the next person who fulfills that role chooses, that we'll be ready.
Yeah, I hope so too. I definitely have not felt hope the way I did 2 years ago for 2 years now. And obviously, we had COVID and Biden and all that kind of stuff, but that really felt like the death of democracy to me when they crushed it. And as you're saying, yes, all of these disparate factions now who who hate each other online, and we were all like kumbaya 2 years ago. And obviously we've always had differences. It wasn't like those differences didn't exist, but there was like a greater thing we were all aiming for. And it's hard right now to see who's on the horizon, if there is somebody.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was who explained this. Somebody on Twitter can call me out on plagiarizing this idea. But someone was saying, even if you do decide to vote blue in the end, maybe you live in a battleground state or whatever your motivations are, you should never admit that, ever. You should hold your vote over the Democratic Party till the dying breath, to the last minute, right? Because it's, again, I try not to vote shame people. I don't think that's a productive strategy.
Right.
But, even if you are going to vote blue in the end, you need to make it count, and you need to say, I'm not doing it unless you give me X, Y, Z, and you need to make them work for it, right? And again, like I said, is it realistic to think that you're really going to get a lot of change out of someone? Maybe it's not, right? But what else do we have at this point other than a general strike or protests that are going to end up getting co-opted and misappropriated in the end? You gotta,
your vote's your one morsel of power.
Right. Like
you gotta push through the grimness of the situation.
Well, we could show the clip right now, but we won't. But Lawrence O'Donnell in 2000 whatever, before he was an MSNBC pundit, he was out there telling people you have to withhold your vote from the Democratic Party. It's the only way, because if they take your vote for granted, they will not listen. They absolutely do not listen to people who they think are just in the bag to vote for them. So.
Yeah, I know exactly the clip that you're talking about, because I spent a very long time trying to find it because I couldn't remember who it was.
Yes, we have it here. Right before, so I did a lot of volunteer work for Bernie. I did like canvassing and calling and texting. And then when he dropped out, he had to, if you wanted to keep texting for down ballot candidates, you could continue to do that. And you could check off if you wanted to also have it rolled into texting for Biden, or if you just wanted to do down ballot candidates. And I just wanted to do down ballot candidates. But of course, if you get people to, the voting booth, there's a better chance that they're going to vote for the Democratic nominee. And so all of that, so I still spent probably 20 hours a week calling, canvassing, texting. I think in the end, I think I was at like 250,000 texts. And I did not vote for Biden because I live in California and because I think he's abhorrent, but I would never, blame somebody who felt that he had to. But a lot of my liberal friends were really upset that I withheld my one vote. And yet I had contacted 250,000 people trying to get them to the polls, but they were mad at me that I didn't vote for Biden.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at the same time, some people, not everyone views it this way, obviously, but I think a large amount of people who would consider themselves leftists, at the end of the day, it's like, if Biden did the things that we're asking him to do, a lot of us would probably vote for him. It's a very genuine desire, as opposed to the sort of bait and switch that you often see in other parts of the political spectrum. And that, at the same time too, a lot of the things that we're complaining about, while sort of celebrity crush diehard brand loyalty liberals would say you're hurting him or her by exposing these bad things they've done. If they listen to us and do and change these things, it would make them more popular, and it would help them. And so I think I always laugh when they say leftist criticism is why I lost. I said, well, next time do what we say and maybe you'll win. And it's I love the concept of Schrodinger's leftist, right? Where it's like, we're fringe and have no power, no one should listen to us, we're a minority, we're only online, whatever. But then, when Kamala drops out and for making it to her home state, it's our fault for tanking her campaign. Right? So we're all
Susan
powerful.
Sarandon.
We're like, Susan Sarandon can completely crash an entire $1 million backed funded campaign. But also no one should bother. Well, which is it, right? And of course, the truth is somewhere in the middle. But it just shows how unwilling they are to have any sort of serious dialogue or come to reality in any tangible sense.
But that is the point. Like, even if you look at the Democratic Party as the only option, taking advice from the left is how you save the Democratic Party is one way to look at it. Like you said, like every policy that Bernie supported had universal support, majority support across both parties. So he wasn't a radical leftist is the point. And by not doing anything slightly left, he alienates his own base in the Democratic Party who believes that he believes in this stuff,
Right.
So
Yeah,
we're
I
doomed.
mean,
yeah.
I will say in college, I think, I was doing a lot of research and reading and stuff because the first Bernie campaign happened while I was in college, and I was kind
Same.
of, yeah, no, see, there you go. I'm pretty sure I saw you actually at graduation. But I think something that really opened my eyes, and maybe this was a current affairs article or something, but it kind of talked about paradigm shifts, right? And when people are dissatisfied with the status quo, they look for a paradigm shift. And I think the obvious example is World War II. There was a lot of depression in Europe, and so you had some folks had that paradigm shift. They went to the right in fascism, Hitler, Mussolini. And in America, we went to at least what was at the time considered the left of FDR.
Right.
Those are the two options, and one side took one and one side took the other. You look at 2016, people were dissatisfied with the status quo. They wanted a change. Trump was the Hitler, Mussolini. Bernie was the FDR in terms of very rough comparisons to left and right. And the Democrats killed the left option and ran the centrist option, who literally they had blue hats that said America's already great. Of course they're going to lose, right? They're going to lose to the person who's offering. It was the wrong change, absolutely. But they voted for the person who wanted change. And what's really fascinating is if you look at recent political history, the quote unquote moderate has lost every single time. Every single time, right? Because Obama ran as a progressive and he beat Romney, who was this flavorless moderate, right? Trump was the extreme candidate and he won. And so Biden's the first person who ran as a moderate and won as a moderate. And it took a crashed economy and a global pandemic and mass protests that he turned into voter registration for Democrats to get it done. Black activists dragged his ass across the line. So.
Yeah, and I mean, a big part of that is that you have to appeal to your base, and not fulfilling your campaign promises, even when they're as pathetically underwhelming as Biden, is going to deflate your own base, which is why we are pushing him to at least fulfill the minimum of things he's said, which is where your account comes into handy.
Yes.
So cheers. But yeah, Trump was a grenade in the whole system. It was like, we're sick of politics. Let's throw him in there. He's a shitbag. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's see what happens. And here we go.
Yeah. I mean, people like to think of populism as a dirty word, but being popular is literally the only thing that matters in electoral politics. I mean, you don't win an election by insulting this populist movement. You win an election by taking control of it and directing it as a force of good instead of evil, right? And so calling everyone a basket of deplorables is not going to win you an election, but saying, hey, you're outraged. Why don't you funnel your outrage towards the big pharma, big oil, the military industrial complex? Don't channel it towards Muslims, gays, et cetera, et cetera. And so far the Democratic Party is at best managed to kind of pervert that message in a very self-serving way, but there's never any actual payout. So
no material gains for anybody except the one $1,400 check on which all of the inflation talk is being blamed right now. What are you drinking there? What do you got? You're going to join us for the wheel, I hear. So we're excited.
You can't actually
it must
see
be
it.
a green drink. I'm guessing it's a Heineken.
Yeah.
Oh, Beck.
Okay, Beck.
It's it's a random beer that I found. I'm kind of uncultured when it comes to alcohol. Maybe is this a bad whiskey brand? I honestly don't know.
It's great. I love it. I love that you're prepared. It's so fun.
Somebody brought this
entry level. Cheers.
Entry level. That's fair. I'll accept that. Yeah, I'm it's kind of a blind spot. I look like I drink IPAs, but I really can't stand them honestly, which I'm embarrassed to say. But,
I didn't become a regular daily have to drink every night until I had kids. And then I was like, 5 o'clock every night, even if I have the stomach flu, it's happening. So you've got some time.
That's fair.
You're too young to be as staunch a drinker as we are.
Yes.
Give it some time.
We could be your parents.
Hey, shut up there, Lila. I say that to you as a woman respectfully, because
I love it.
Appreciate both sexes.
Okay, so should we do it? Let's see what's on our wheel today. Let's get to the wheel.
Sure.
Should we do the wheel?
Let's do
Where's
the wheel.
Our beautiful? Oh, here we go. Here's our music.
Hey, where'd you go? I was scared. Pat left for a second.
I let the music go so I can grab another beer. So.
The important stuff. That's show.
This is how the sausage is made.
He had to carry the giant wheel onto set. What do you mean, where did it go?
That's true. Right. That is true. Well, in my socialist apartment, my fridge is actually right here, literally.
It's perfect placement. So what do we got? We got so long COVID, unreliable sources, executive disorder, rushing Russia, and something funny. God, give me something funny, but lots of shots. That's what I'm always happy about.
There are some shots.
Should we do it?
And I haven't seen something funny, so I'm appreciating that part because Lila uploaded it.
I hope you think it's funny.
Right.
Okay, let's do it.
Is it lady humor? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god! Yes, that's the way you always should start.
That's how you start.
There we go.
Last week, I had thrown my back out as only a young 27-year-old like myself can do. And I couldn't move. And so when I'm normally like getting excited for my shots, last week I was just like, ow, ow, ow. But I'm better now. Magically, it's all the vodka. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
And I won't make a joke about Josh throwing your back out.
Okay, my husband. Hilarious. All of a sudden, he's turned.
Josh, good job.
No, it's okay. I've got a bad knee. I'm wearing a knee brace, so.
I'm sorry.
Solidarity.
All right, so yeah, solidarity for sure. The
yeah, baby.
Wow.
What are the chances? Let's fix your knee. Let's go.
The fact that I'm starting to think this is rigged, and the fact that you're drinking vodka makes me think that it's Russian involvement.
Yes, I'm Putin's puppet. Yeah, we're gonna get to that, but I am Putin's puppet for sure. Russian, I'm helping Trump, all those good things.
We do remove each shot as it comes up, by the way. But cheers.
We are?
No, we have.
It's
just a fluke.
All right, cheers. Here's to your knee.
No, it's funny. I was lucky to see. I got to see Pussy Riot in between their prison sentences, and I imagine that put me on a couple. I imagine I ended up on a couple lists in both countries for that, probably. So.
Yeah, you're on all the lists for sure.
Josh is calling me out. There we go.
That's excellent. The comedy writer strikes. Go ahead. It was an easy setup.
Brilliant comedy writer. By the way. We should hype Josh once in a while.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. Let's spin that.
Yeah, baby.
Don't.
Okay.
Wow. So it's definitely
sometimes I kind of cheat and I only do small shots, but I had already put 2 ounces in this because I needed another drink after my pregame drink, and now I'm already a mess and my cheeks are very red.
Perfect.
Okay.
This is how we get to the real talk.
This is where shit gets real. Let's just fix your knee. That's what I'm most concerned about. Okay.
Oh, I know. Well, at least I won't be able to feel it anymore by the time we're done with this.
That's the best. That's how I fix my back.
And I'm glad you're staying for the after show. Thank you for volunteering. I'm just kidding. You're not forced into the after show where things would get especially weird, I'm sure.
All right, let's get some real
baby.
Oh, really? We're starting with something funny. We should have ended with something funny.
Do you want to save it? We could just override it.
I feel like we should. Let's override that because we haven't even gotten to any of the real stuff yet.
We might have some politics to talk about.
Yeah.
If it's not shot, it doesn't count.
All right. Executive disorder. That's what we wanted to talk about because we are in trouble, folks, for our Vote Blue No Matter Who friends. This is where we are with, you're out of there for a moment, with Biden's approval by state. It's a disaster. He is underwater everywhere. You probably can't read that very well, but luckily I've got one of your tweets. And we can't see you, though. This is crazy. I don't know how to
Is
fix
there a
it
way to
because
do
of
it?
the.
I'm pushing all the
Oh,
buttons.
that's
Let's
pretty
see.
good. We have pushing buttons. Can you make us go to the left?
That,
No.
Hey, hide me. That works. That works.
He's
We'll
gonna
roll
go
with
get a
that.
drink. Yeah, as you were saying, look at this. Biden may be your first choice, but we simply have to nominate someone with better electability. He has 56%. People don't approve of anything he's done. What are we going to do about this?
Oh, you're asking me.
Anybody, somebody.
We want the answer, please. Or great Oracle.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know canceling student debt immediately would just skyrocket him in the polls. I can't remember what the actually, I guess I can cheat rather. Let me look up what the number was.
Student loan debt is hugely popular. Hugely.
It's 80. Here we go. 40% of Black voters feel strongly enough about canceling student debt that they would be, quote, unwilling to vote for candidates who oppose eliminating student loan debt. So that's, we all know student loan debt has majority support for being canceled. But I think something as stark as, these people would stay home. And also, Biden always loves to say, I love Black voters. I love Black voters. Well, what are you doing for them? And are you listening to the ones who are saying that they've had enough of waiting for you to come through for them? Of course, I've got student debt. I don't know if you guys have student debt, but today's the 400th day that he woke up and chose not to sign that piece of paper. And that piece of paper would raise, I think even just canceling 50,000 would raise Black wealth 40%. And it would canceling all would change the racial wealth gap from 12-1 to 5-1 between Black and white families. And so, I think we don't talk enough about it being a racial justice issue. And I think what's really disappointing is you see, some people have asked me, do you get a lot of Republicans replying? And to be completely honest, I thought I did, because a lot of people would reply to me and say, oh, you took out a loan, you got to pay it, pull yourself up, et cetera, et cetera. But you click through their profile and they're Biden supporters. And it really goes to show how, undistinguishable they are from other conservatives who've chosen a different party. And so, all this sort of misinformation about canceling student debt and what it entails and who's paying for it, who's not paying for it. Right. You see through that bullshit. I think if he realizes he's going to lose, he signs that piece of paper. Yeah. It's going to be a big bump.
Yeah.
And of course, he should forgive all student loan debt. I mean, it's an obvious choice, but you ran on forgiving $10,000 immediately, and then he's hiding behind he's telling Congress to send him a bill. That's his excuse. But they've also tucked away the ruling. Like, so he asked his I don't know,
like some policy group or whatever
the equivalent of a parliamentarian. Lila, say it for me, please.
Too many shots.
Yeah. It happens so soon.
But they have hidden they haven't released what that person
the
said
justification for being able to do it, and it's explicit.
So they redacted the entire thing. It's hilarious.
Right. So it's clear it's an excuse to not even do the bare minimum that he ran on, which was underwhelming to all of America.
Right. Well, how much money did he get from Navient? I mean, right? Like, there is a reason that they should be like NASCAR drivers, where we know who has funneled money towards them, because there's a very clear path between who funds them and the policies they fight for.
And as most of us know on the left, he was known in Congress as senator, as the senator from MBNA, which before your time, but that was a big bank, credit card company. So he's from Delaware. Delaware was where all these institutions and banking set up,
like
things that freed them from liability from the rest of the.
And they hired his son. Because he was
and he Biden was the one who made for bankruptcy for college unforgivable. Bankruptcy loans, you couldn't file for bankruptcy for
you can discharge your student.
Yeah.
And that's another great example of where the privilege argument comes in. I will probably be able to pay off my student debt in my lifetime, right? So I don't need to worry about student debt to the extent that other folks do. But that's an issue that I really push really hard on, because I know a lot of people who are under crushing debt, and a lot of folks who never went to college at all or got the jobs they wanted because they were turned off by that threat, basically.
Right.
And so it's something that, you know, I feel very passionately about. But I think, you know, I try to avoid, to an extent, I try to avoid moralizing on the account. I don't want to beat people over the head where this is wrong. You know, I try to limit the tweets that say, where is the outrage? I really try to keep it more like, here's what's happening. Here are the facts.
Right.
You know, as best as most of the time. Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I do that is because, you know, people don't necessarily respond well to that, of course. But just what really disappoints me is that, you know, Biden's not going to be around for that many years more. Right. He's nearing the end of his career, and he's nearing the end of his life. Objectively speaking, he's a very old elder statesman. What really just frustrates me is he doesn't need to do the right thing for the right reasons. He can do the right thing completely for ego, completely for polling, completely for votes. But he's so committed to upholding his legacy of keeping people bankrupted, keeping people incarcerated, keeping people, you know, deported or bombed or whatever it is that he's built his career on. And these are the donors who've gotten him where he is. That he has such undying loyalty to his real constituents, these special interests, that he won't, even now in like the twilight of his career, he won't just throw us a bone, right? Because like I said, if he does these things, he would have statues, he would have pictures everywhere. I mean, he would have the most cold-hearted leftist would say, no, like, I would love to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it just goes to show that, like, they just don't give a shit. They really just don't care about you. But the most that realization.
The clearest indicator that there's no way of getting him to do any of these things we actually, you know, all support on the left is the $10,000 of student loan debt. To me, I mean, that is like such a clear campaign promise that's not being achieved, that he could do via executive order immediately.
And he's getting off easy because people don't realize that he actually at one point, and let's be honest, he doesn't necessarily have the highest cognitive function right now, where I think he forgets about what he's saying all the time. But he did at one point promise all debt would be canceled for everybody making under a certain amount. And I forget what the certain amount was, because all I knew was
125 or something. But
like, I can't imagine making that much money. So it's, you know, you can look up the Medium article. It still says by Joe Biden. He says, I will forgive all debt for people making this amount. And so the fact that, you know, we're so bad at holding him to account as an American society, as a collective, that we don't even remember some of the stuff that he said he would do, because it doesn't even seem possible that he could say that, because he won't throw us the bone for the bare minimum that we do recall him saying.
It's pretty devastating. And, you know, this week there was a big, we're going to talk about leading up to World War III. After we've all been quarantined for 2 years, we're emerging just to start a war. But, you know, signing his executive order. And there is a great ongoing column by David Dane over at, I'm going to put it up here, at the American Prospect, about the executive actions that Biden could take right away. Day one, he could cancel federally issued student debt. He could implement free public college. He could give us all Medicare for all using Section 1881A. He could, you know, argue or work to get prescription drug prices lowered. He could ban fossil fuel mining on federal land. I mean, there's a lot of things
literally
that he could
doing
be
the opposite of that right now.
Expanding. Yeah, and again, that's one of the core reasons why I make this account, because there's a lot of very well-meaning people who aren't as obsessive-minded as me and don't pay attention to every nuance of public policy, who would say, look, like, oh, he's trying his best, right? You know, which is a very legitimate and reasonable thing to have been propagandized into thinking. You know, I think, oh, it's the Republicans that are stopping him from doing this, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I really wanted to highlight, look, no, these are things he can do, and here's how he can do them. And I'm going to tweet about them. For a while, I counted every single day until I reached day 100. It was just exhausting to say, look, like, you know, we need people to realize that he can do these things, because the first step of pressuring people into doing the right thing, whether it happens or not, is at least pulling back the curtain and becoming aware of that possibility. So,
well, especially because when Trump is president, he's the most powerful, evil, fascist, able to do everything. And when we have a Democratic majority and the White House, we can't do a single thing. So, I mean, if of course we could do things, but if people are really believing that, they have been so propagandized to believe that there is no power in the presidency. And there's a whole group of people on the, liberals who really push this like Green Lantern theory. They joke about it like, oh, you think the president is all powerful? You think he can just come in? And it's a way of obfuscating the truth, which is he's very happy to have Kristen Sinema and Manchin there, because if they weren't there, it'd be another 2 people. And if it weren't that we had 50 people plus the VP, we would have 60 people that Obama had and still couldn't get the things right. So like, as soon as you understand what the game is, then all the rest of it just becomes fluff and propaganda, right? But like, I think a lot of people are still really invested in feeling like Democrats are doing all they could do, and it's just these 2 bad villains.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the Obama administration thinking, people are being too hard on him, like he's doing the best he can, like his hands are tied, that sort of thing. And I don't mean to come off as condescending, but then I graduated high school and went out in the real world and realized like that's, I left a red state and saw all the problems that were still happening in the majority blue places that I moved to and lived in, and thought, oh, like I thought there was no racism in a blue state with a blue mayor and a blue governor and a blue senator. I thought they'd solved all of this. Like I thought, I didn't think these problems existed outside of the South. I left the South and all these problems still exist. What's going on? And that was a very eye-opening moment for me, sort of a coming of age. And it really it motivated me to stay involved.
It really fueled Bernie's whole movement, is the disenfranchisement a lot of people felt about Obama. And I think when people realize that Citibank appointed most of his cabinet, I mean,
but people
to me,
still
that's
don't.
the most
It's
telling.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I mean, to both your points, so my own family is a perfect example of the good meaning people that fall to propaganda. Like I'm in California, where they're all super lefty. They've donated to Bernie, all of them. But as soon as he lost, like Biden can do no wrong, they just will believe. It's I don't know if it's driven from needing to believe that things are not so bad and that our world is more stable on some level, or just pure propaganda. I don't know. It's always a
I think the one thing that Democrats have done really efficiently or in a smart strategy is invest their voters, their supporters, with a sense of moral rectitude for voting for Democrats. Like we are the people who care about civil rights. We are the people who care about gay rights. We are the people who care about abortion. And then it doesn't matter if there's any distance between like the actions and the words. As long as you're saying the words, that's enough to kind of glom onto and just pacify people, which is
because the words will always be better than the alternative words,
right?
If you believe in these ideals, you're always going to hear something worse on the right, and that's where like we all three of us have empathy with people that fall into that trap, but we're not all offering a real viable alternative out of it. But we do still need these people to realize the reality of what's going on, which is why, like, Weston, what you do is important, because like we need to point out the fallacies of Biden's entire existence.
Yeah. And again, that's why I say, talk to people, because I hate to say this, but I've had conversations with Trump supporters and I've had conversations with Hillary and Biden type liberals, and sometimes it's a lot easier to talk to the Trump folks in the sense that, they both have legitimate concerns, but one side has a sort of arrogance where they think, oh, we're virtue signaling, we're better than them, like we're enlightened, we're evolved, whatever, versus someone who's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't really like Trump, but he's a businessman. I thought he would fix things, right? And you tell them, well, yeah, I understand why you want someone to come in and fix things. That things need to be fixed, but here's why he's not the right one to do it, and here's why his way of going about it's wrong. And then, at the end of that conversation, they're like, oh, wow, like that totally makes sense, and we come to an agreement. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I think, people say, oh, the leftist ideas are too extreme. You'll never get that middle American person. We're the only ones who are willing to talk to them. Even Elizabeth Warren, who was a Republican for longer than Trump was too scared to go on Fox News. But you see Bernie go on Fox News and he gets an entire crowd of Fox News in studio audience folks clapping for Medicare for all, you know, and
that
so
was,
we
I just
really
got chills. That was an amazing
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
you know, and so you just, I think, again, weaponizing populism as this evil, I think people forget what's at the core of movements and change, and that's listening to people's concerns and telling them how you're going to address them. It's not about, you know, Kamala's down in the polls, so what does she do? She hires a bunch of PR group people to focus group how she can, you know, communicate better and get her message.
Messaging is the whole thing.
Right. You know,
walking
if you
her
see
chucks down the,
yeah, if you get a bunch of, you know, liberal elite, so to speak, who think of everything as a problem of messaging, then you're going to see everything as a matter of PR. It's like if you see everything as a nail, you see everything's a hammer, it's a nail. You know what I'm talking about, the same.
Yeah.
It's about giving people things that materially improve their lives. At the end of the day,
Right.
every human being, no matter what they believe in, has material issues that need to be met. And I think a lot of times people either forget or willingly obscure the fact that that's what it all boils down to. It's all Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
So
you're good. You have a nice way of communicating. You're much kinder than Pat and I are.
Oh no, I'm terribly angry. I'm just trying to.
You're on your best behavior. Well, let's fix it. Let's spin the wheel and see if we can get to another segment.
Shot.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, good. No, that's fair. I wanted to see. I've been dying to see her something funny, whatever it is.
No pressure. Make fun of me. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it on. Ready?
Oops, I didn't remove it, but all right, go ahead. Roll it.
All right.
What do you got?
All right. Wait, I'm getting
Make me laugh, God damn it.
Oh my God. Okay, here we go.
I hate it. Makes me feel like shit. The only social media site that I like is Venmo. That's right. I like Venmo. Venmo's a money transfer app, which everybody knows, but what not everybody knows is that on Venmo, there's a feed where you can like tab over and you can see all of your friends and your contacts' financial transactions, which should be illegal, but it's there. It's right there. And I like it because it's honest. It's the only honest social media site out there. Every other social media site is a projection of a version of yourself you wish you were onto a canvas, not Venmo. Venmo is the honest antidote to the horseshit of Instagram. Instagram makes you feel bad because you're aware of your own fears and insecurities and preoccupations, but you're not seeing anybody else's. So you're always going to lean that way. So you see a picture on Instagram of like a couple. Maybe they're on like a beach, looking at a gorgeous sunset. Maybe they're eating a pizza. You look at this, you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? The fuck is wrong with me? How come I'm not doing that shit, huh? Is there something wrong with me? Is there a hole here that everybody can see? Do I emanate darkness? Do I repel love? Is there a limit to my emotional aptitude? Did my father's genetics set that limit? Do I need to go back on antidepressants? What the fuck is going on inside of me that's not leading me to that type of bliss? What do I have to do to get there? But then you look at Venmo and it's like, oh no, dude, they split that pizza. I'm doing just fine. I don't need medication. It's not a referendum on splitting stuff in a relationship. I think if you're going to split stuff, just don't split the items. Go every other. Does that make sense? I'll see that on Venmo. I go on Venmo, I'll see like boyfriend sends girlfriend money for tacos. I'm just like, how the fuck do you go down on someone after you just sent them $8?
That's it. That was good, right? Come on, that's funny.
That was good.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Do you remember a few months into the Biden administration, someone triangulated Biden's private Venmo account by looking at like who he was sending money to or receiving money from? Which again, it should all be, I don't know how they get away with putting all that stuff on there.
And why doesn't it? Because you can put it on private. Like how the hell does the former VP and the guy running to be president not have his on private?
This is the first I've heard of any of this. So
it's
first off?
just dangerous. Right? So you're much older than her, is what I'm gathering from that question.
I mean,
Totally.
pretty much,
Thank
yes.
you.
I mean,
Yes, it's crazy
But-
how much older you
But in
are.
all, I mean, in all seriousness, like it shouldn't be visible at all. But someone found Biden's account, and everyone was hitting him up and requesting money for their student loan debt.
That's awesome,
That's
actually.
awesome. I appreciate that.
wholly endorse that. Well, anyway, this guy, Drew Michael, we just watched his whole special. He's really funny. He does sort of have like a lefty kind of bent to some of his humor, which I really appreciated. But anyway, that was my something funny. Spin the wheel.
Oh,
No,
Oops.
I get it.
Let's add it
There
to-
was
we got.
oh
No. That was really? You already did the shot? Weston was in the middle of talking. Oh my God. All right.
Oh.
Here we go. And then I want to hear what Weston had to say.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking. I missed it.
He was telling us about
no.
splitting tacos. Yeah. Tell us.
no, it wasn't important. No, I was just going to reference some. I was going to reference some tweet that's like, how are couples always sending each other $10 back and forth just buy each other a fucking beer like an adult? And I always think of that every time my girlfriend and I send each other $10. I always think of that tweet and feel shame, which really is the whole point of Twitter. Actually, is to be able
It
to
is
do that.
you just feel shame. It totally is. My husband and I
Also, where
Yeah.
do I find a girlfriend that just sends me $10?
I'm sorry, you cut out. What was that?
I'm just looking for a girlfriend who will just send me $10 once in a while.
Oh yeah,
Just push.
it's the only
push it.
requirement.
Like
My
$10.
husband and I have been together for 29 years. So yes, I'm a little older than you.
Congratulations.
And for
Mostly
the
in a row, just for the record.
For the first 8 years, we had a board and we split and we moved in together pretty much like our second date because I couldn't stand my roommate. And so we were like living together. We split everything. We would go to a movie, and if he bought the soda, I'd put $1.75 on the board. Like we had a running tab of everything for like probably the first 8 years. And that's
Well, I
how
mean-
healthy relationships are born. No.
Moving in together as the second date is the what convinced me you are from New York. So I believe.
That was our first fight. It was about
Who's got
sex.
the rental hookup?
Yeah. Oh,
right?
got
I
it.
don't know.
Sorry. Yeah, I was taking
I
a
have
different
no
way.
idea.
All right, let's spin that wheel. We don't have that much time left.
Oh, okay, let's go. What do we got? I was trying to get the other thing off the wheel and it didn't work.
It didn't work. All right. Our music isn't going, but that's all right.
Oh, I
Unreliable-
mute. Wait a minute.
Oh.
That's
sorry.
that's because I muted it. My bad.
Okay.
But
We need a PA or a first assistant director or something, not just the two of us pushing all the buttons.
Got to hire an
Um,
intern.
Yeah, exactly. With we are not even a Patreon. We do nothing. So we're just like doing it all ourselves.
actually,
Unreliable.
we
yeah.
pay followers. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right.
All right. Unreliable
What-
sources. You want to get us started, Pat?
What do we have on unreliable sources? Let's scroll the list.
Let's scroll
see.
the list. Well, we were part of the problem is the whole show. Yeah. Wait a second. You're just
See,
pushing random
this
buttons.
is why you don't ask me to just push random buttons. I
I
will
was-
push random buttons.
So our whole concept for the show is to like we just like hanging out and drinking, but also calling out corporate media and politicians for their corruption, their hypocrisy, and the dishonest media narratives. And so of course there's a lot of that has to do with war and COVID, which are also on there. But most recently there is a spate of articles about the rising crime, which apparently isn't even based on the truth, that the statistics aren't that crime has risen, but it's a way of, another campaign promise, if you're not black, you wouldn't vote for me or whatever the hell Biden said, right? Like all of these activists who stand in line to vote for him, who
It's true. I'm
are
not
sort
black
of-
and I didn't vote for him. true.
called from the George Floyd protests
ain't
and
lying.
activists down in Georgia and everything, and then he not only is completely dismissive to them, but is funneling more money to police and militarizing the police than even Trump did. But all of it is sort of predicated on this false narrative. Oh, and then Eric Adams, right? Of the crime rates are rising, which isn't even
Mhm.
true. But it's also like, which crimes are we focused on? Is it
Right.
stealing steaks from Trader Joe's or baby supplies. And so that's what our unreliable source is. Take it away, Pat.
Well, so, I mean, I think why we brought this topic up is that the media really directs the public's focus on issues, right? So if they talk about how they frame things is all that matters to most people, because it really, as much as we have influence on the left, progressives, we're always going to be undermined by how MSNBC and CNN frame things. And
Right.
so the stake issue, let's just show the clip. But I mean, this was Morning Joe and Reverend Al Sharpton, of all people, talking about someone stealing some steaks.
It is true that people are just walking in and walking out with it.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you go to a local pharmacy, Dwayne Reed or Rite Aid, any of them, and you've got to get someone to help assist you. I mean, they have the little button there.
Yep.
You hit the buzzer, and the guy comes over and unlocks your toothpaste.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about basic stuff. What did I miss that we now have to lock up toothpaste?
Yeah, and
I'm just curious, Rev, really quickly. I mean, Eric Adams said he's going to do his best to fix this. I'm just curious. I mean, he's got a governor who's saying, well, I don't know that we want to give the judges any power to make decisions on whether they've seen the same bad guy in front of them like 12 times in the past week. And then you've got a DA. I know you talked to the DA. The DA's going, oh, we don't want to punish anybody unless it's like really bad. So, yeah, you can steal whatever you want to steal. And, yeah, we won't do any jail time. And then you've got... then you've got a woke city council. I'm just curious, is Eric Adams going to be able to do anything? Well, he's obviously surrounded by elected officials who want New York to remain chaotic.
Well,
I mean, sorry, I just have to stop that because it's so atrocious.
Yeah, it's
The framing about all of that, even from Reverend Al Sharpton, is that how do you stop the theft? Oh my God, it's so awful. I have to get someone to unlock my toothpaste. Not like, how do we get here?
Imagine people are stealing toothpaste.
They never have a discussion about what it takes for people to be at the situation where they're stealing toothpaste or tampons before we get into this some more, let me show
the contraband.
The New York Police Department stuff is like really like gross. So this tweet was deleted, but this is the New York Police Department bragging about confiscating all this stuff from theft. After receiving numerous larceny complaints in the Bronx, officers from whatever recently arrested 12 individuals following an enforcement initiative targeting shoplifters. The arrests made led to the closure of 23 warrants and the recovery of $1,800 worth of merchandise. So this was a brag, like, 6 days ago. And there's one picture they show with all of them in front of the table, but since they deleted the tweet, we couldn't get the picture of them in front of the table. But this was what was on the table: Pampers, Huggies, Mucinex. I mean, every little thing there is like survival shit, and they don't have a conversation about that, about what
would prevent that crime is actually paying people a living wage, having Medicare for all so that they're not bankrupt from having to go to the doctor, right? Like, and how about
even without having that conversation of what it would take policy wise, they're covering up the story about how dire the situation is for people. Yeah. Like, you don't have to support Bernie or any of these policies or any of these leftist issues, but you're making crime the number one central focus of this story instead of people in dire need.
Right.
I mean, that's what we get. We got a corrupt cop as a mayor, so it makes sense. He's cutting funding for everything but police, basically. And it's, I know I'm preaching to the choir saying this to you guys, but it's very obvious when you look at the fact that the communities with the lowest amount of crime have the least cops and the most funding for their community. The communities with the most crime, their funding is going towards cops and not the community. So, I think one of the most amazing quotes I ever heard was something like, you don't fight crime to save communities, you save communities to fight crime. And I think that that really is so true, right? Because
Yeah.
these rich folks on TV, you know, laughing at people having to steal basic necessities, they don't realize that's the biggest indictment of a dying empire that there is, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's we need to drive home the fact that, you know, if you oppose defunding the police, you are directly supporting defunding everything else that keeps people alive.
That's
And
right.
I think that's something that, you know, we need to work on making that connection with folks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
but
yeah.
well, I just want to say that Democrats ran really on this whole issue of all the issues in the Black community with I mean, defund the police. They're pretending that defund the police really actually hurt them. So they're
Right.
doing the opposite. We had a whole year of movements in the streets with BLM and supporting, you know,
That was
trying
widely popular across the
widely
spectrum.
popular, and BLM
Yeah.
support was off the charts
Yeah.
when that happened with Eric Wright, off the charts. And then after Democrats lost and started blaming defund the police, the narrative switched.
With the
And
down ballot. Yeah.
the BLM support was negative after that. So it went from like there's a ton of grassroots support for
The shots
for
are
BLM.
kicking in.
They are. The grassroots support for BLM was off the charts, and then after Democrats and their messaging was like, oh, defund hurt us, defund hurt us, defund hurt us, defund hurt us.
Even though none of the people who lost on the down ballot were pro defund the police, right? The only person who ran on that was Cori Bush, and she won.
It was completely a made up narrative, but they said it enough on MSNBC and CNN that it worked.
People don't realize how unpopular Black Lives Matter was with the general electorate in America when Obama was president, because they're seen as fringe and extreme because they were protesting a liberal president. The second they were protesting a right-wing president, that they were able to co-opt and kind of jump on board with that and misappropriate that message, went through the roof, right? And you see folks who were never on board with that coming up. I mean, Black Lives Matter protested Buttigieg and was saying he needed to resign because his administration in South Bend was so horribly racist. So I think it really just shows that, again, you know, that feeds into the argument of the Democratic Party cannot be reformed, right? People who say that believe that for this reason, and that's a very valid thing to say. They are surviving and subsisting solely on misappropriating and co-opting these movements that then they kill. I think there's a really interesting graph I've tweeted a few times where Republican voter registration was higher than Democratic voter registration until the Black Lives Matter protests happened. And the Black activists running those protests channeled it into voter registration and massively eclipsed Republican voter registration. And so I think there's a very logical case using that evidence to say that, again, the Black Lives Matter movement and defund the police movement is what got Biden elected. And so the fact that he immediately turned around and
put that in contrast with the stat you brought up earlier about 40% of African Americans saying they wouldn't vote for him if he didn't reconsider his position or whatever it was on student loan debt. I mean, this is the base that really needs to come out and give them a win. So when we criticize the Democratic Party, take it how you want, but like he should take this advice to win.
Yeah, I mean, Obama was much more effective at pandering to the base. Obama was a much more effective politician in the way that he was able to pander to the base in superficial ways, right? And keep them on board, even if he wasn't actually giving them any substantial policy. Whereas Biden just doesn't have it anymore. He's not able to do that. And so he's either going to lose or he's going to give the people what they want. And I'm not really convinced he's prepared to do that. So, but I mean, you look at, again, you look at the protests, and I mean, I actually forgot where I was going to go. I really wasn't way too many shots.
Sorry, you're such a
welcome
good
to my
then.
world. No, I still appreciate you, but you should pregame like I pregame.
I probably should have. That's
really terrible show. It would be awful if you pregamed like I pregame, but I appreciate you.
I just want to also say, because yes, the defunding the police versus funding the police and the betrayal of the Democratic Party to Black Lives Matter. I mean, they did the same thing with Me Too, right? They killed that movement basically. But then just going back to speaking about crime and what the mainstream media actually focuses on and what crimes exist, you know, this is something they could be focusing on, right? Billions of dollars of wage theft happening every single year. They never focus on those crimes. They could be focusing on the fact that I think 10 million people worldwide die because of air pollution. That I got it right here. That was just in a study that came out just today, although I've heard it before. I mean, it says 9 million there, but there are crimes happening. It's not stealing toothpaste or baby formula, right? I mean, it's just where the focus is, and the story that they keep leaving out really is telling.
Well, and even civil asset forfeiture vastly eclipses actual burglaries. And Biden and Kamala were huge proponents of that, fighting against reformation and expanding that. And that's something that, of course, is never talked about. Right. But one thing, just to close out the defund the police discussion, I mean, you look at how liberals like to say defund the police is a bad slogan. I think what people aren't necessarily grasping about that conversation is liberals think that defund the police is a bad slogan because to them, a good slogan is something that's vapid and promises nothing, like hope and change, or build back better, which they took from the Tories anyway. I'm British, so I would know that apparently. But you look at defund the police. I mean, defund the police is a easily understood pragmatic solution to an obvious problem. It's not this vacuous sort of platitude, and that's specifically why they don't like it. Right. And you look at these policies that even if they're able to kind of make them poll badly with these optics and this propaganda, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If Obama or Biden came out tomorrow and said we need to defund the police, it would skyrocket with liberals, right? Because so much of it is coming off of tone and what their leaders are telling them is realistic, right? So again, I mean, the whole argument is so disingenuous.
Yeah.
If this whole discussion is framed by the media as it really exists in real life, it's different. But we're looking at the media wag the dog to try to get people to believe that they don't believe what they believe.
Right.
Is the whole game.
And there's a way, as you're both saying, of just explaining it nicely and clearly and concisely. And then it doesn't have to be a bad slogan, but they would rather say it's a bad slogan and continue to militarize and fund the police. I mean, there's no interest truly in resolving this problem in a way that would defund the police from the people in power. So that's the crux of it.
Yeah. And again, I mean, Biden, I just want to say real quickly, the outcome of all the BLM stuff and the protesting and people in the streets was that Biden ended up ultimately giving more money to police offices. So that is not going to play well, no matter how much spin you put on it to a lot of people, which is the base of the Democratic Party, which got him elected along with COVID, which he's also failed on terribly. So Democrats are doomed in the midterms for sure. But by 2024, maybe you can save it with something. I don't know what that is, but
more COVID.
And again, like it all ties into the same privilege conversation. Like I'm white. I've only almost been killed by a police officer once in my life. It could be much higher, but it's not. And I think that's something that I still feel very passionate about this issue. And I think again, there's a lot of things that people don't realize that would completely change their mind if they knew. Like, for example, the fact that Biden could do an executive order to end the program that transfers military-grade weaponry to police, which is another thing that he's increased coming off of the Trump administration, and him and Obama broke the records for it in the first place by drastically kind of souping up that program from the start. So it's these sorts of things that I think people just don't have the understanding of that context. And why would they, right? Because this is very important, very intentionally hidden, right?
It's not discussed. So, right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they could end qualified immunity tomorrow. I mean, it would have a legal fight, but that would bring the discussion up, and we would come up to something better than what we have right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to
and
see him fight. At least.
Yeah, they'll say, we ended chokeholds. Well, most of the time, murdering someone's illegal anyway. And then
exactly.
Those sorts of rules usually don't stop cops anyhow, because if they did, they would have been stopping.
It's already ended when they did that to Eric Garner. It wasn't. It's not like that was a legal way to go. I am realizing it is 6:15. We have had you here way over an hour. You're an amazing guest. Thank you for coming on. Thank you also for being like my daily check-in. You explained your point of view so beautifully and with such calmness. I'm gonna have to learn how to deal with my normie Dem friends in a nicer fashion, because you're really.
I just want to add, pretty eloquent for a white guy.
Oh, thank you. No, it's funny because What's funny, especially that you're having me drink, is because I never had a positive test, so I can't be certain. But I've had this like really weird brain fog for a while, so I think that I had like an asymptomatic COVID that really just manifested in a sort of brain fog. So I've actually just felt drunk for like the last few months, and so I'm kind of amazed that I can speak eloquently on anything. Especially
you're good. Look at you, and I'm sorry that is there. And we didn't even get to our COVID talk, but it's really getting late, and we'd love to have you come back, and I don't want you to feel like we took advantage of you being here.
No,
I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, COVID will still be around.
I just wanted to add something really important, that I had brain fog from college in my 20s as well. But it involved that bottle you held up earlier.
So you mean like last year, right? That was like last year.
I mean, yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. But
all right, listen, thank you for coming on. We would love to have you back anytime. You're a fantastic guest. Thank you all.
Everyone, please follow him on Twitter.
Yes, Waiting on Biden.
Yes, and follow our friends at Punch Up Pod as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're amazing. Everybody, keep punching up, keep the faith. Wear your masks, for God's sakes, because it's going to get bad, I think.
It's
so
just
please.
a fucking mask, so be careful.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.